It wasn't any of the litany of errors that the BBC have made over its Israel and Middle East coverage that ended up with the resignation of Tim Davie, the Director General, or Deborah Turness, who was the CEO of BBC News. Instead, it was down to this Panorama documentary. Panorama is the flagship documentary series of the BBC. And in this particular episode, they had spliced together two parts of President Trump's speech on January the 6th, making it look like he had urged the crowd to go and commit acts of violence. When in actual fact, the bit they cut out, the 40 to 50 minutes of footage in between the two bits they used, was where he urged them to do so peacefully. And of course, that has been something that just nobody could survive in that role. But they were able to survive the Hamas propaganda documentary that they made, despite their own investigation into it showing numerous failings, including giving money to the family of a Hamas-linked child who narrated the documentary. He was indeed the son of a Hamas minister in Gaza. But all of these things have had a cumulative effect. And the Telegraph newspaper published this dossier, this leaked dossier that was given to them by somebody who was meant to be a senior journalist advising the BBC on these matters, who'd been so frustrated by the BBC's obstinacy when these issues were raised that they had in the end taken to publishing it publicly like this. And the other failings cover all manner of different topics, from LGBTQIA plus issues to do with homosexuality and transgenderism, to do with the Israel-Gaza conflict, to do with Donald Trump, and there were apparently 8 or 9 other ways in which they were said to have been anti-Donald Trump during the election period. And all of this, I think, just had a cumulative effect that the BBC is now desperately suffering from a crisis of trust, and those two big executives have decided to resign.
Right, and just to explain, this is the national broadcaster. Everybody who owns a television in the UK has to pay the licence fee, which funds the BBC. I've seen more and more people on social media saying they just won't pay it anymore. Do you think the BBC will take heed? Will this be the beginning of real change at the broadcaster?
Well, I think this has been going on for some time, this movement of not paying the licence fee. So as you say, the BBC is the national broadcaster. It doesn't have commercials on it, on any of its outlets. So it is funded by this television licence, which is a bit like a tax. Not everybody has to pay it. Traditionally, it was those who bought televisions, and technically it's those who bought televisions and watch live television on them, or on the playback service online called iPlayer. But in reality, that means that most households do pay this 175, I think, pounds a year to fund the BBC, and that is why they have this obligation to be impartial, something that really I think many viewers feel they fail on. The other idea of it, of course, is that they're able to make programmes and to cover the news in a way that may not be popular commercially, or may be subject to boycotts or other protests were they commercial, but they should be able to withstand that because of their unique funding method. But again, they haven't really been taking advantage of that. They have instead been complying with groupthink, let's say, that takes place across this massive institution. And it's worth noting that it really is a massive institution. It covers local radio, it covers online material, it covers apps, it covers television, of course, with several television channels, entertainment, nature documentaries, news, more or less anything you can think
of.
Recipes,
yeah.
The BBC is making it.
Yeah,
absolutely.
It's everywhere. And just real quick, Jonathan, to be fair to the BBC, they're not alone today. The Reuters news agency, also British, talking about 200 civilians trapped in tunnels under Gaza today. What's going on there?
Absolutely. Listen, I think a level of bias against Israel and a misunderstanding and twisting of the news coming out of the region isn't unique to the BBC. But what is unique to the BBC is the idea that they are funded by coercion, that British people basically have to pay this television license if they own a television and watch live TV, even if they don't watch the BBC live on TV. And so I think that when Reuters and others make these mistakes, it's pretty bad. But when the BBC does it, it's on the British licence fee payers' dime, and that is all the more unacceptable. And it's seen as the voice of Britain around the world, almost officially so.
Yeah, pretty shocking. Let's hope we start to see some change. Jonathan, great to talk to you. Thank you very much indeed. Jonathan Sachadosi there.